Hi, you've made it to Module 3. So this module, it will be talking about some of the things in a child's background which makes them more likely to engage in challenging behavior. As you read last week, these issues or risk factors or characteristics or events do not mean the child will engage in challenging behavior. These are not causes. However, statistically, we know that children with these situations in their backgrounds are more likely to engage in challenging behavior. Think of it as um, put yourself in the shoes. You've had a really rough day at work. You have been yelled at by your boss. On the way home, you get stopped by police officers for speeding and you get a speeding ticket. And then you get home. And now your significant other asks you when dinner will be ready. And you lose it and explode. Being yelled at by your boss, having, received the speeding ticket, those didn't cause you to explode, but they increased your feelings of frustration. They lowered your coping skills so that then when an event happened, you were unable to handle it in an expected fashion. So instead, you exhibited challenging behavior, exploded at your significant other. These are the same dynamic as what we see with children. So another way to look at it, think of what you've learned in past courses about Erickson. And Erickson talked about those different crises that individuals go through throughout the lifespan. And if we resolve that crisis successfully, then we develop the coping skills we need to move forward and be productive and emotionally healthy adults. The first crisis that infants face is trust versus mistrust. And this is where they learn through having their cries consistently attended to, by being fed when they're hungry, changed when they're wet, picked up when they're uncomfortable. They learn expectant trust. They learn that generally speaking, the world is a safe space and that their needs will be met. Children who are neglected, children who are abused, children who have medical issues that prevent their parents from being able to pick them up or that cause them to be in constant discomfort. Children who are, sometimes children who are adopted, and so they are taken from one family to another family. And so, that interrupts that bonding cycle. In this case, those infants do not develop trust. They develop instead mistrust. And so their view of the world is that the world is a dangerous place and other people are not going to help them. Other people are not good. They're not going to support them and meet their needs. And so they need to do anything within their power to get their needs met because they can't trust you to do it. So when you say, wait, we'll have lunch in an hour. I know you're hungry, but it's almost lunchtime. They don't believe you. Their experiences have taught them that you're not going to feed them in an hour. So they're going to go into another child's lunch bag. They're going to go into your purse. They're going to steal. They're going to sneak because they're hungry. And they don't trust that you will meet their needs. One other way of looking at this is to consider what you've learned in past classes about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Remember, Maslow said that our basic needs, our needs for safety, our needs to have to have warmth, to have food, our needs for security and feelings of love and belonging have to be met before we can go on to learn. And so when we talk about these issues that can create the situation where challenging behaviors are more likely to occur, these are issues that keep a child from being at that level where they can learn. So if a child is living in poverty, they are more likely to be living with hunger, to be living with uncertainty about shelter and warmth and clothing. And so that makes it more likely they'll engage in challenging behavior because they're at those bottom levels of Maslow's hierarchies of needs. Those needs aren't met. And so they can't learn the expected ways to deal with frustration or sharing or the other kinds of things that we ask people to do throughout their life. If you have an individual that you work with who has a history of trauma, they may still be in that trust versus mistrust crisis, and they've developed mistrust. And so they are not going to believe you. They're not going to, at a very instinctual gut level, they do not anticipate that you are trustworthy. So it doesn't matter what you say, because their experiences have taught them people can't be believed. Only by repeatedly showing that you are consistent, that you are loving, that you are kind, no matter what that individual does. It doesn't matter if they're biting you, if they're tantruming, if they're telling you they hate you. Only if you can repeatedly and consistently respond to that with kindness and understanding, yes, firmness, yes, sometimes consequences, but from an emotional standpoint of caring and affection, will that individual have a chance of maybe learning to trust you? And so throughout this module, we'll be learning about some of those kinds of situations that can predispose a child or an adult with developmental disabilities to displaying challenging behavior. Again, these are not things that mean they definitely will engage in challenging behaviors, but it means that like their tolerance levels lowered because they're dealing with these other situations. And so they're less likely to have the coping skills necessary for appropriate behavior. And when you look back in the records of the individual that you're exploring for this case study, look for those kinds of things. Think of the individual who maybe this student is now a high school student and they have struggled to learn to read, maybe because they were in 10 different schools in first grade and they just missed that instruction and they never had an opportunity to catch up. What are they going to do? Are they going to sit there and admit as a 16-year-old that they can't read? Probably not. They're probably going to become the class clown, or they're going to be belligerent because they don't want their peers to know that they can't read. And so that inability to read may be due to something out of that child's control, like having moved a lot when they were little, or having been sick when they were little, or having been emotionally unavailable due to a parental divorce. That is going to predispose them to challenging behavior because they want to cover it up. So, on to this module's readings. As always, if you have any questions or need clarifications, please feel free to reach out.